Hello everybody. This is a video on how we can write polynomials based off of roots that we are given. Okay, so this is kind of an extension of the fundamental theorem of algebra, which you guys should have just watched a video on. So I want to write a polynomial with roots 2, 4i, and negative 4i. So the 4i's might be a little bit intimidating for you, so this is also going to count as a little bit of a video on how to deal with them. Okay, so I know that if I have a root of 2, then my polynomial, so remember that this is like the reverse of factoring. So if I was actually factoring something, I said x squared plus 2x plus 1, we can easily factor this and we would say that it's x plus 1 times x plus 1. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to actually start, instead of starting from here and going to here, we're going to do the reverse. We're going to start with this. Remember that in this case, x plus 1 means that negative 1 is a root of this equation, because if we plug negative 1 in for x, negative 1 plus 1 equals 0, and that would make the whole thing 0. So what we are going to do is basically the same process, but we are going to reverse it. So with that being said, I'm going to work in green now. So I want to write a polynomial with roots 2, 4i, and negative 4i. So I'm going to start off by writing it like this. So each of my roots that I want to start off begins with x inside the parentheses. Now I need to figure out, if I have a root of 2, so if this is root 2, I know that this has to be negative 2, because if I plug 2 in for x here, I want this thing to equal 0. Okay, so then my first unit, or my first term, is going to be x minus 2, because my first root is 2. If I plug 2 in here, 2 minus 2 equals 0. I want to do the same thing with 4i. So if I have a positive 4i, and I'm going to be eventually plugging that into x, I want to say that this is x minus 4i, because 4i minus 4i, even though it's imaginary numbers, it still works the same way. 4i minus 4i is going to give us 0. And then we're going to apply the opposite logic here. So I'm going to do x plus 4i to find my roots. So here, basically, all we're looking at is we are going to start writing it like this, and then we are going to look at our roots, and we're going to plug them in such a way that if we plug the roots in, we would get 0 for each one of these terms, depending on which one you're looking at. Now once we get here, we want to basically just use the distributive property and FOIL from here on out. So to start, I'm going to start actually with the imaginary numbers here. So I'm going to do my FOIL, so I'm going to bring this x minus 2 down already. We'll deal with this in a second. So I'm going to do FOIL, so I'm going to do my first one. X times x is x squared. I'm going to do my outside one, so x times 4i is going to be a positive 4ix. On the inside, negative 4i times x is going to be a minus 4ix. And on the outside, so I did first, outside, I did inside, and now I'm going to do last down here. So a negative 4i, if we want to look at it, so I'm going to bring this up here. So a negative 4i times a positive 4i, we're going to do this just like we would normally in the distributive property. So negative 4 times 4 is going to be negative 16. And then we have an I times an I. This is going to be, remember, this is I squared. So this is negative 16 I squared. If you guys remember so basically I functions like x does. If this was negative 4x times 4x, it would be negative 16x squared. But we can simplify it a little bit more, because if you remember from the video, we know that I squared equals negative 1. Okay? So basically, since we know that I squared equals negative 1, we can actually substitute negative 1 into this equation. So it's actually negative 16 times negative 1, which is just 16. In which case, you have gotten rid of the i's, which I'm sure you would be very happy about. So we get actually that this last term, when we multiply these two together, we actually get a positive 16 here. Okay? If we simplify this middle equation, you'll see that we have plus 4ix minus 4ix these actually cancel each other. So we are just left with x minus 2, and then x squared plus 16. Okay, now we're going to FOIL again. We're going to do x times x squared is just x to the third. We have our outside, x times 16 is going to be a positive 16x. We have our inside terms, so that is going to be minus 2x squared. And finally, we have our outside, or our last terms, which is negative 2 times 16. It's going to be negative 32. And if we simplify the order, we'll switch these order because we want to try and write them from highest to lowest degree. So our end equation would be x cubed, minus 2x squared plus 16x minus 32. Okay, so this is our polynomial. So when our goal is to write a polynomial with roots 2, 4i, and negative 4i, we start off just by reversing what we normally do when we factor. We are actually going to start with the factors, and we're just going to do FOIL and distribute like we know how to do. With imaginary numbers, it can be a little bit difficult, but I'm confident that you are able to do that. Just imagine I is like x, but remember that an I squared equals negative 1. And so our final answer for writing a polynomial with roots 2, 4i, and negative 4i is this polynomial here, which is x cubed minus 2x squared plus 16x minus 32.